series, our theme this year is unstoppable. Unstoppable. Hello. So somebody asked me, well, why do you call it the Rainbow Series? And we call it the Rainbow Series because really through this series, we're going into an element of our own energetic system. And you might know that as the chakras. Okay, but you don't have to know anything about the chakras because we keep it really simple here, so it's okay. But as we're going through our life every day, we are faced with conditions. Right? We look at the conditions around us, maybe the conditions of our physical body. I know a month ago I was like, why am I sick? I don't like being sick. Right? I was focusing on where I didn't feel well. And if there's something going on in our life, if the neighbors are too loud, maybe you're thinking about the conditions of really loud neighbors. But see, in these outside, the conditions, the events, the things happening out there, we get stuck in wanting them to change so we can be happy. We want them to change so we can have the life we want. We want that thing to change so we can do what we want to do. The thing is we might be able to manipulate something outside of us and bring about temporary happiness. Like I was feeling kind of feckless and bored and lonely one night, did a little online shopping, kind of fixed it for a little while. But see, I was manipulating a condition outside of myself. And I got the thing, whatever that thing is that I ordered. It's always the same thing, right? I get it. I imagine happiness, and then I get bored of it. And, and then I have to go and do some more online shopping. Okay, so we can manipulate conditions in our life, but that's short term. That's short term. And it doesn't empower us. The thing that empowers us is us learning to manage our thinking and our actions. Or we learn to manage our shadow and our grace. So to do this, we have to know our authentic self, because we actually serve one of two identities all the time. We're serving our excuses self, right? Our excuses identity that's pointing around to things out in our life as being wrong, and that's why we can't be happy right now. But we also have a divine identity. We have a true authentic self. And so today I'm going to talk about ways to know which identity you happen to be serving. So we're going to go through today, we're going to cover Unity's first principle, which is God is all things. Now, God is all things is also known as a universal law. Now, the universal laws, there are 7 universal laws, but there's a master law that rules all the other laws, and it is the all is the all. Now, the thing about a principle or a law is it's unchanging, it is constant, it is impersonal, and applies to everyone, everywhere, all the time. For example, the law of gravity, right? It's not just a good idea, it's the law. Okay, but see, the law of gravity is unchanging, constant, impersonal, and applies to everyone, everywhere, all the time. But gravity didn't keep anybody from building the Great Pyramids. Gravity did not keep us from sending rockets into space or putting a satellite station up there. Gravity is not here to put us in a box and limit us and keep us from doing the things that we want. But we are governed by physical laws, and we're governed by the universal laws or the cosmic laws. Whether we know about them or not, we're governed by them. And they too are constant, unchanging, impersonal. They apply to everyone, everywhere, all the time. So our first unity principle, God is all things, or the master law, God is all. It can kind of look like, well, there it is, but it can kind of look like this. Look at all the names that we have for God. And that's just what I could fit. That's just what I could fit on there. I bet we could sit here and take 20 minutes and come up with 25 more names for God. But God is all things. It's first cause. It is the intention to let there be light, and it was the activity of the light, and it was the demonstration of the light. It's the creative universe. It's everything that's ever been and everything that's yet to be. It's the substance from which all things are created. It's the force that desires expression, and it's the physical expression that it takes. It's everything we see, and it's everything that's yet to be. So it's everything in the unseen realm, and it's everything in the seen. It is pure potential, and it is pure possibility. Okay, so it's all things. There's not one spot, even this big, where it is not. Now, this is good for us to know because the second unity principle, right? So God is all things. This is the first principle. The second principle is then I am an expression of the all. I like to say it like this: God is all things, and that means me. Because where is there one place in this universe that's not God that you came from? Like, it's not there. It doesn't exist. I know sometimes it can feel like we got dropped off on this planet, but we are from the all. We are created in the image and likeness of our Creator. Not a physical image, a spiritual image. Okay, so this consciousness of the all, this force that put the galaxies into their spin, this power that creates worlds, it also expressed itself as you walking around on this planet right now. The power that creates worlds is at work in you. Those ideas, the inspirations to do the next best thing, the next right thing for you, like that comes from that source. That comes from source. To do bigger and bolder in your life, to expand your territory, that comes from that source. And this is your authentic self. This is your divine self. This is who you are, not your excuses identity. That's like when you're closing yourself off from the divine. Okay, this is your authentic self. Now, when we stand in our own authority, we can say it like this. Let's see. I know who I am. I know who I am. Divine light expressing as me. I know what I am. I'm the demonstrator of that. I do that through my consciousness and my awareness. I choose to do that. I choose to be the activity of good, of God, of source in this world. I choose that. But we don't have to choose that. And when we don't choose that, that leads to being stoppable. It leads to our blocks and restrictions. And that happens when we start focusing on the conditions of our lives. Like, we can feel really good. Like, get up in the morning, and we have time, we do our meditation, we're like, I am one with the all. We can just feel really, really good. And then we walk out into our life, and things are happening, and people are hurting or scared or angry, and there's all these things happening around us. And we go back into our like, oh, I don't like this. If this would just stop, then everything would be okay. If this person would just stop, then life could go back to normal. Okay, so that's what happens. We're focusing on the things out there. But see, when we focus out there and we need that to change, we're looking to it as the source of our happiness. It has to change first so I can be happy. Okay? You know, there's actually one of the 10 Commandments addresses this. No, that's not it. Never mind. One of the 10 Commandments addresses this. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt have no other gods before you. Do you want to know the gods that you put before the all? You want to know those gods? Blame. If this guy hadn't done that thing 25 years ago, my life would be okay. Resentment. It sucks and stinks that I have to do this thing, but if I just don't do it, who else will do it? Lack and wanting, they go together. I really want this thing and I don't have it. And while I don't have it, I can't be happy. I really, really want it back into my life. I want it into my life because when I get this thing, I can be happy, but while I'm lacking it, I guess that means I can't be happy. Judgment, right? That's pointing our finger at somebody, needing them to change so we can feel better. Envy, we see somebody else is doing it better than we are, so why should we bother? We don't feel so good about ourselves because somebody else is doing so great at it. Hate. Hate is the big one. All the things that you feel like you need to change, all the things that you wish would never have happened, these are the gods that we are putting before the all. These things we're putting before that power that creates worlds. The power that put the galaxies into their spin. We think that that power can't help us find inner peace, can't help us find solutions in our life. Is that what we're thinking? That's what happens when we put other gods before us. We're looking to the conditions surrounding ourselves with our excuses for why we can't do what we want to do. So how do we become unstoppable? We must consider the unity principle, the master law. God is all things, and this means me. We want to consider this every day. We want to at least think about it every day. This is what makes us unstoppable. This is what reminds us of where we come from and who we are and what we are. This gets us into our divine identity. Now, I found something really interesting a few years ago. This is how we know if we're in our authentic self. It's called the qualities of the centered self, but I see them as our God qualities. Our God qualities. And they're called the 8 C's, and they're on the little note thing if you took one. When we are feeling calm, clear, compassionate, confident, connected, courageous, creative, and curious, we are in our centered self. We are in our divine identity. Let's see. But we want to learn to recognize the red flags then in order to be unstoppable. Now we know that we are stoppable. We're stuck, we're in lack, we're in restriction, we're being blocked if we're not experiencing these. Right? If we look out to the world and we don't have a lot of compassion for the guy that just cut us off. If we will look out into the world and we're not curious, maybe somebody has a different point of view, but instead of being curious, maybe we decide to be judgmental toward them. All right? Maybe somebody is doing something great and suddenly we're not so confident about what we're capable of doing. Okay, then we're not in our divine authority. If we want to point our finger at someone outside, right, in our life, if we feel like we need to set somebody straight in how they eat, vote, pray, or parent, we are not in our divine authenticity or identity. Right? If we're needing somebody else to change, we're not in our own divine identity. This leads to virtue signaling and slacktivism and canceling. I just learned about slacktivism like last week. I didn't even know it was a thing, but it's actually a thing. But see, what these things are actually are we're trying to control other people. We want them to fall in line with our beliefs. If they don't fall in line with our beliefs, then we disregard them. We toss them out of our lives because they don't agree with us. Of course, you don't have to make friends with everybody, but see, when we're not in our centered self and we're trying to manipulate the people in our lives, these are dark tactics. They're dark tactics. We don't change the world and we don't change the people in our lives by demanding they do things how we do them. I'd just like to ask you, when was the last time you changed a belief because somebody demanded that you do it? Right? When was the last time you changed a belief because somebody posted something on your Facebook wall, right? About how wrong you were about your belief system and that you better just consider this, right? Did you change your belief? So we're not changing anybody's belief if we're demanding they do that. In fact, if we're demanding somebody change to make us feel better, we're actually in the shadow of the root chakra. We're in arrogance or hubris. We think that we know better. We think we know better than that power that put the galaxies into their spin, the power that creates world, that is at work in each and every person. We think we know better than the power working in them. Right? We're going to decide what they need to do. Never mind like the spirit working in them. All right? The thing is we don't know what we don't know. Right? We don't know their timeline. We don't know how God's at work within them. We don't know how maybe they'll get a wake-up call. Maybe we're the one that's going to get a wake-up call. Like we just don't know timelines in other people. So we want to go into our centered self, our authentic self. Only someone in their centered self becomes a force for good, and only a force for good becomes a change agent in this world. We change because we see other people living a truth. We see them living it and demonstrating the good that it can bring into this world. And that's what makes us want to do better. That's what makes we become curious and we want to ask them, like, what did you do differently in your life? The way you show up, man. I salute you. So here we do have the grace of the first chakra to help us, and the grace is reverence. Reverence is the grace that enables us to see all of life as an interconnected field of cosmic activity, that everything has its beginning and its ending in this field of cosmic activity, in the matrix, whatever you want to call it. Reverence is what allows us to see the entire package of our life as holy, no matter what's going on, right? And I had somebody always asks me this, like when I'm just in regular conversation. How do you see the entire package of your life when there's all this bad stuff happening? All these horrible things happening in this world. How can you say that everything is holy? The Stoics have this saying, amor fati, to love fate. To love fate. I like how Marcus Aurelius puts it, though, to love only what happens, what was destined, no greater harmony. To love only what happens, it doesn't mean we have to love all the bad stuff. It doesn't mean, to love only what happens means we're not wishing things could change so we could be happy, right? We're in the moment. If we see all of life is holy, that means then from that moment we're doing our best with what we have got, even though maybe we don't like what's going on. And this is how we experience harmony, okay? To love only what happens. This is what's happening right now. I'll do my very best because all of life is sacred and I have no idea how God is going to show up in this world. I have no idea how solutions are going to present themselves. There's no greater harmony than being able to be like that in our life right here and right now. The power of reverence transforms us, okay, when we practice this. To not wish for things to change so we can be happy, but to rather practice seeing everything as holy. We go through a mystical transition, and it's the only way that we discover the working bond between ourselves and the divine at work within us, is seeing all of life as holy. I know a lot of people wish to have more intuition or they want to have more spiritual guidance. But see, if we're not in our 8 C's, we're not going to believe half of the information that we're being given, half of the information that's guiding us to show up bigger and better and brighter in our world, right? But see, practicing reverence, seeing all of life is holy, this is what helps us discover that working bond between ourselves here and what we can see in the world and what it is that works through us, for us, as us, that power that creates worlds. So to have reverence for all of life as holy, it helps us call for solutions. And you know what? It doesn't mean that we have to pretend everything's okay. Right? It doesn't mean we have to fake positivity. If there's something in your life or in the world that you think needs changing, you can still stand up for what you believe in. You can still stand up for what you believe is right. And when you're in your 8 C's, when you're in your divine identity, you will be filled with ideas and inspirations and solutions. You'll know the next best thing to do. But if we're not in our 8 C's, if we're in our shadow of arrogance and hubris, we're probably just pouring more poison into the world. Right? If we're in our shadow, we're focused on the conditions themselves, not what it is that's working through us, for us, as us. If what we do is not fueled by empathy and compassion, but rather we want people to change, then we're probably in our shadow, using dark tactics, using manipulation. I love this from Proverbs. In all your ways, acknowledge God, and God will make straight your paths. This just means see God everywhere. It's one power, it's one presence is everywhere. There's not one place that it is not. So just see God everywhere. See your life as holy. See the ground that you stand on is holy. Where you stand right now is sacred ground. And where you are 2 hours from now, and on Monday at 2 o'clock, and on Thursday at 4 o'clock, everywhere that you go in that moment, you are standing on sacred ground. Whether you remember it or not, you are always standing on sacred ground. And when you see life is holy, when you have reverence for all of life, this allows you to be a grace generator and call forth greater good and to see the opportunities that are presented for you to make this world a better place. Everywhere you stand is holy ground. So be in your divine identity, right? When you're practicing reverence, seeing all of life as holy, you're in your divine identity. You can say this then, I know who I am, divine light expressing as me. I know what I am, the demonstrator of that, the doer of that in my consciousness and my awareness. I choose to do this and I know how I serve. I stand in my truth. I witness the truth. I demonstrate the truth. I speak the truth. Even if there's somebody and I don't like hanging around them, I don't like how they eat, vote, pray, or parent, I still remember that the divine is at work in them, and I am not privy to how the divine is working at work in them, right? That's their lane, that's their business, right? So I have a call to action for us. You know, I learned the difference between a New Year's resolution and a goal. I don't know, maybe you guys already knew this. A goal, of course, is a thing we want to accomplish, right? I want to pack something, or I want to declutter, or I want to lose 40 pounds, or I want to go to the gym every single week for the whole year. These are goals. A resolution is actually changing who we are. We change our identity. Now, this is why 92% of people, in 3.5 weeks from now, 92% of people are going to start giving up on their dreams because they have a goal, but they're calling it a resolution, but they're not understanding they need to just become that person. You become it. And so this is how you become a person, even that person, that version of yourself, even though maybe you're not really that person yet, maybe you don't look like it. Like I could say I'm going to be an athlete. I'm an athlete. I don't look like an athlete right now, but we'll just see next December, right? But I remember when I decided to learn to play guitar, I picked up a guitar and I went and searched for how to play chords, and I didn't tell people, well, I'm learning to play guitar. I just said I'm a guitar player. I wasn't a very good one, but I took on a new identity. I am a guitar player. You know, I think my husband Dave did that when he was like 15 years old. He went and got himself an electric guitar. I am a guitar player. My son did that with drums when he was like 11, right? I'm a drummer. You take on a new identity. Or you accept the new identity. Look at this, Eric Butterworth. We don't change what we are. We change what we think we are. We change what we think we are. And when we're going into the new year and we've got things picked out that we want to demonstrate, and then we get into the second week of February, we start thinking, this is really hard. I don't know how I'm supposed to keep this up all year long. Right? 3.5 weeks, 92% of people are going to start letting those things go, and they're going to forget about them. And then they'll think about them again next January and wish they would have stuck with them. But we don't change what we are. We change what we think we are. So I'd like you to think about in 2023, not your resolution, but what's your identity? How do you want to show up in 2023? Like, what is that identity? Like, maybe it's something like, well, I keep promises to myself now, right? I wasn't always good at keeping promises to myself because I would put other people before me. And sometimes I had to break a promise to myself to take care of myself, not do something stupid with my back, right? Because it's like, no, I have to do this other thing, and it must be done first. So I will just give up this thing. Okay, but this year I'm showing up. That's how I'm showing up, is I keep all the promises to myself. If I made a promise to myself, it means something to me, right? So how do you want to show up? How do you want to show up in 2023? If you start off with knowing God is all things, the all is the all, and there's nothing outside of that. There's no way that you're outside of that. God is all things. That means you. If you keep remembering that and reminding yourself of that, like, what couldn't you accomplish this year? Like, how could you show up this year if every day you woke up remembering this about yourself? How might you show up differently? Are you thinking about it? I hope you are. The all is the power expressing as you. That same power that created worlds. Here's our affirmation. It's a long one, but it's a good one. It's on your paper too. Let's say it together. I stand in the truth. I witness the truth. I demonstrate the truth. God is all things, and that means me. God is all things, and that means me. So I stand in the truth. No matter what's going on out here, I'm not gonna give up, right? I'm not gonna give that more power than that power at work in myself Because, when we're demonstrating it in ourselves, other people around us start demonstrating it in themselves too. We don't have, if you look out in the world and there's something that bothers you and you're feeling hopeless about it, remember, if you stand in your own truth, there's somebody else who'll stand with you on that. And eventually, there's going to be a lot of people standing in this truth. We are really in some strange times right now, and I know I keep saying this, and I think I started saying it in 2017 or 18, but those strange times, they're not nothing compared to where we are right now, because we are in an evolution of consciousness. And I know a lot of you have heard me talk about this over and over again, but we are in an evolution of consciousness that started happening in the last 30 or 40 years. And it will wind itself up in the next 30 or 40 years. Never before has there been an evolution on our planet that took one lifetime to complete. And this information, I got this from a book, Sacred Journeys, and it's on our front table if you want to kind of check it out. It's very interesting. But the thing about an evolution is that most people don't want to go along with it because it means change. Right? In 2020, won't it be nice when it goes back to how it was last year? Okay, who all was saying that? I know I was saying that. Silly. It was silly of me, I guess. I wasn't thinking. I was like, yeah, it'll be nice. Well, eventually this will be done, and it'll be just like 2019 again. I know my stepdad was always one. It's let's go back to the Reagan years, right? When everybody had money. We all had money to spend. Nobody was hurting. I remember when I was working back in the 80s, I had all the overtime I wanted, and I was making, we had money to spend, huh? It was crazy. But see, this evolution that's happening is causing a revolution because the majority of people still don't like what's happening. It's scary to think about letting go of things that no longer work. And that's what this evolution is about. The soul's journey, or the soul's evolution, is about letting go what no longer works. And I'm speaking of systems and institutions and belief systems. Right? I had 20 years ago, my husband made me get rid of a bag of clothes that at that time was 20 years old, and I was never going to get rid of it again. I thought it was going to kill me. I didn't want to get rid of those clothes that I would never even wear again, that I hadn't even looked at in 20 years. Imagine what people are going through right now, thinking about how systems and institutions are changing. They just don't work anymore. Our belief systems, they're changing. They're changing a lot. Okay, so we are here to demonstrate our divine identity in a bigger and bolder way, no matter what. Okay, no matter what is going on in your life, everything in motion right now is part of the sacredness of life. If you think about what's going on in the schools or in other countries or in your workplace or in your family or in your friend circle, everything that is in motion right now is part of the sacredness of life. But it's up to us to see it. It's up to us to be in the grace of reverence, to call forth the grace of reverence, right? No matter how we want to judge all that, right? Amor fati, to love fate, to see the sacredness of all of life and embody the 8 C's, embody those qualities of our divine self. Embodying those qualities and being in our divine identity, they'll get us through anything. They'll get us through anything. And again, it is the only way to discover the working bond between ourselves and the greater power at work within us, expressing as us. It's the only way. And that's how we are creating heaven on earth. So until next time, remember, you were designed to do all of this. Everything you could possibly need is already within you, just waiting to be called forward. And everything you do, you are blessed, and so it is.